Hello, my dear listeners. I welcome you to this special confession program. Today, I bring you 4 real and painful stories that will open your eyes. In the first story, a man who has been in a dangerous cult is thinking of quitting. You expose how they are stealing people's souls using money notes and coins. In the second confession, a woman is confused. Your boyfriend from a poor background sacrificed everything for her to go to the university, but now she wants to leave him. The third confession is from another man who is also thinking of quitting an evil group. You tell us about a new satanic method of using cigarette smoke to take people's souls. And the last story is from a housemaid who is pregnant for her boss's husband. This boss took her from the streets when she had nothing. She is feeling guilty because she wronged a good person. My friends, my listeners, let us start with the first confession. How are you, Solution Uncle? I'll be glad if you disclose my identity. I'm a man in my late 30s. For many years, I lived a normal life. I worked small jobs, sold things in the market, and tried to survive. Life was not easy. I had big dreams, but my pockets were always empty. One evening, I met an old friend. His name was Peter. We grew up together, but we lost contact. That night, he came to me in the shine car wearing expensive clothes. His skin looked smooth, his shoes looked new, and his watch was gold. He looked like a man who had made it in life. We sat in a small restaurant and he bought me food without even looking at the price. I was shocked. I asked, "Brother, how did you make all this money?" He smiled and said, "There are ways to become rich very fast, but you must be willing to do things most people fear." I laughed and thinking he was joking, but he looked at me with serious eyes. I'm part of a group that controls wealth and power. If you join, your life will change forever. But you must follow all instructions, no turning back. That night I did not sleep. My mind was full of questions. My debts were killing me. My rent was late. My family looked at me as a failure. The next day I called him and said I wanted to join. He told me to meet him at midnight. We drove to a place outside the city. It was dark. We entered a very big house, and I saw many men and women wearing black clothes. They welcomed me like a long brother lost. They promised me money, protection, and success. If I gave them my loyalty, I agreed. Without knowing, I'd just signed my soul away. They took me to a small room with red lights. In the middle was a table covered with black cloth. On top of it were strange objects, coins, money notes, and a small bowl with blood and a candle. A man who looked like the leader told me, "This is the oath ceremony. You must speak the words after me. Once you say them, there is no going back." I was shaking, my mouth was dry, but my mind kept thinking about wealth. I wanted to escape poverty, even if it meant doing something I did not understand. I repeated the words he spoke, promises to keep secrets, promises to obey, promises to give my life to the group. They gave me a proper paper to sign with my blood. I pressed my finger on a sharp pin and drops of my blood fell on the paper. After the oath, they gave me a brown envelope full of cash. I had never held that much money in my life. I felt powerful. I felt like my problems were over. But I also felt something strange in my heart, a heavy fear that I could not explain. They told me my first job would be simple. You'll be giving people free money notes and coins in certain places. The leader said, "It will look like charity, but it is not. Each note and coin is power." At that time, I did not understand what he meant by power. My first assignment came 2 days after that day. They gave me a bag filled with small bundles of money, different notes and coins. They told me to walk around busy places like markets, bus stations, and small shops, at the malls even. I was to give the money to certain people they'd already chosen. They gave me a small notebook with names and descriptions. I didn't know these people. I didn't know why they were chosen. My job was just to find them and give them the gift. The first person I gave money was a woman selling vegetables by the roadside. I smiled and told her it was from a good person who wanted to bless her. She looked happy and thanked me many times. The second person was a young man carrying bricks. I gave him coins and he put them straight into his pocket. As I moved around, I noticed something. Every note and coin I gave had strange marks like tiny symbols and scratches. When I asked the leader later, he said, "Do not ask two questions, just do your job." 2 weeks after I joined, the leader called me to a meeting. There were 6 of us in the room, all wearing black shirts. On the table were coins and money notes spread out like a deck of cards. The leader looked at us and said, "You are now ready to understand what you are really doing." He told us something that made my blood feel cold. Every note and coin we gave away had gone through a spiritual ritual. Dark prayers were spoken over them, and animal blood was sprinkled on them. Some were even passed through fire or buried in a graveyard for the night before being collected. The leader explained that when someone touched that money, especially if they took it with excitement or need, a spiritual link was created. That link tied their soul to the cult. From that day, their dreams, blessings, and even their life path could be controlled by the group. He said, some will lose jobs, some will fall sick, some will die slowly, some will become so unlucky that they will have to come to us for help. That is when we own them completely. I sat there in shock. I wanted to speak, but my mouth was dry. I thought about the vegetable seller and the brick carrier. Did I just give away their souls? My stomach felt heavy, but I also felt trapped. I had taken the oath, and I'd already spent some of the money they gave me. One night, I was with one of the older members, a man named Joseph. He had been in the cult for more than 15 years. We were waiting in a car outside a nightclub, ready to pass cased money to certain people. I asked him, "Why do we mostly use notes? Why not other things?" He laughed and said, "Because everyone wants money. If you drop a shirt on the road, no one will pick a $50 note, 10 people run for it. Money is the fastest way to touch someone's spirit without their permission." He explained that money carries human trust. When someone accepts it, they open a door in their soul without knowing. That door can let in blessings or curses depending on where the money has been. He said the cult prefers higher notes for people in high positions, business owners, pastors, or politicians, because the more they value the note, the stronger the spiritual link. Smaller notes are used for ordinary people in markets and streets. I began to understand that the plan was not random. Every coin and note had a target. Every target had a purpose. At first, I thought coins were useless because many people do not like them. But I was wrong. Coins had their own dark power. The leader explained one night that coins were used mostly for binding poverty and sickness. They are small, so people pick them without thinking. They often roll into places, under beds, into water buckets, or into children's hands. Every coin was prayed over in a different way. Some were buried in the grave of a poor person before being given out. Others were washed in a mixture of Asian blood. He told me a lot of things. I once believed the people I gave money to were chosen randomly, but I was wrong. The cult had a very clear system for picking victims. We were given lists. Sometimes the list came with full names, other times only with the descriptions, like a woman with a red scarf selling tomatoes, or a tall man carrying a sack at the bus station. The leader told us, these people have already been marked spiritually. Some of them are weak in prayer. Some are greedy, some are desperate, some have already opened small doors by doing wrong things. What we all need is to push them into full control. They had scouts who walked around markets, offices, churches, and even schools. The scouts would watch people for days, learning from routines and struggles. They would then send information to the leaders. That's how the target lists were made. My personal role was called the end. This meant I was the one who made the physical handover. I didn't prepare the money. I didn't do the rituals. My job was to make sure it touched the target's end. Sometimes it was easy. I would buy something from them and pay with the cash demand. Sometimes I would pretend to be generous, giving money just to help. Other times I would drop it near them so they could not pick up. A lot happened since I started saving this scout. A lot has happened, Solution Uncle. After the widow incident, I feel like I can't continue doing this. People are struggling because of us. Please, Solution Uncle, hide my identity. But the most important thing is that people know my story. I'm waiting for their responses so that I can be saved. I'm in trouble, my uncle. Please help me publishing. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move to the second confession. How are you, Solution Uncle? My name is Maria. I'm 27 years old. I grew up in a small town in a family that struggled to make ends meet. I was not from a wealthy home, but I had big dreams of going to the university one day. I met a person I'll call Joe when I was 19. He was a few years older than me. We met at a community event where young people gathered to clean the streets and plant trees. I remember he was wearing old clothes and torn shoes, but he had the warmest smile I'd ever seen. From that day, we became friends. He would walk me home after the event and tell me about his life. He came from a poor background too, but unlike me, he had stopped school early to work small jobs. He told me that even though he didn't have much, he wanted to do something meaningful with his life. I admired his honesty. Over time, friendship turned into love. We started dating. Joe's life was not easy. His father had died when he was very young, leaving his mother to raise three children alone. They lived in a tin two-room house made of bricks and mud. When I visited their home for the first time, I saw how little they had. The roof leaked when it rained and the furniture was old. But I also saw how much they loved each other. His mother welcomed me warmly, even though she had even have very little to offer. John worked in construction, sometimes carrying heavy cement bags for small pay. Other times he worked in people's gardens. He would often come home tired, his hands rough and dirty, but he never complained. I remember once asking him how he stayed so positive despite all these struggles. He said, because I know I'm working for something bigger than for myself. At the time, I did not fully understand what he meant. When I finished high school, I was accepted into a university, but my family could not afford the fees. I was ready to give up and maybe find a small job. That is when John did something that still breaks my heart to think about. He told me, Maria, you will not stop your education. I will make sure you go to the university. I laughed and said, but how? You don't have money yourself. He just smiled and said, don't worry about that. From that day, he worked twice as hard. He took extra jobs, sometimes working late into the night. I later found out he even sold his small piece of land, the only property he had inherited from his father, just to pay my first year fees. He bought me books, paid my rent near campus, and even gave me money for food. Sometimes he went without eating so I could have enough. I knew deep inside that no one had ever done so much for me. Paying for my university was not easy for him. Every semester he had to find a way to get the money in time. Sometimes he borrowed from friends, sometimes he worked at dangerous construction sites far from home. I remember one holiday when he came to visit me at the school. His hands were covered in cuts and his skin was darker from working under the hot sun. When I asked why he was pushing himself so hard, he said, Maria, one day you'll graduate and everything will be worth it. I don't want you to suffer like that. You have a sharp mind. He always told me. In the first year of university, I still loved John deeply. We'd talk on the phone every night and I would tell him about my classes. He would listen patiently, even though he was tired from work. But as time went on, things became harder. My classmates came from wealthy families. They dressed well, drove cars, and went to fancy restaurants. I started to feel embarrassed about my simple clothes and my small room. John tried his best to visit, but sometimes he could not afford the transport. When he did come, he looked out of place among my university friends. Some of them whispered about how poor he looked. I pretended not to hear, but inside it hurt me. We were still together, but the gap between our worlds was getting bigger. University opened a new world for me. I joined clubs, attended events, and met people from different backgrounds. Many of my new friends came from rich families, and some had boyfriends who spoiled them with expensive gifts. I started going out with them to coffee shops, cinemas, and weekend trips. Sometimes John would call while I was out, and I would feel annoyed because I didn't want to explain where I was. One of my friends once told me, Maria, you are beautiful. You deserve a man who can give you more. Why stay with a man who can't even buy you a decent dress? I laughed it off, but her words stayed in my mind. My family also started to change their attitude. At first, they were grateful to John for helping me study, but as I got closer to graduation, they began to say things like, you can't marry a poor man. What will your future be? One day my aunt said, Maria, you are almost a graduate. Don't throw away your degree by marrying someone who will keep you in poverty. I defended John, but inside I began to doubt. I wondered if love alone could build a good life. The turning point came during my final year. There was a graduation dinner for senior students, and everyone was expected to bring a partner. I invited John, but he said he couldn't come because he had no suit or decent shoes. That night I went alone. My friends asked where my boyfriend was, and I lied, saying he was working. I felt ashamed. Later that week, John visited me with a bag of groceries. I should have been happy, but all I saw was his worn out clothes and dust shoes. I hated myself for feeling embarrassed, but I couldn't stop. During my internship, I met Daniel, a young man from a rich family. He was confident, well dressed, and drove a nice car. He showed interest in me, buying me gifts and taking me to places I had never been. I knew it was wrong, but I found myself comparing him to John. Daniel could give me things John couldn't. The more time I spent with Daniel, the more distant I became from John. I was torn. My heart still remembered John's sacrifices. The end of John, the land he sold, the nights he went hungry for me, the long hours he worked, but my mind kept telling me, you need a comfortable life. Whenever I talked to John, he still spoke with love and hope. He would say, soon you'll graduate and we'll start our life together. Those words made me feel guilty because I knew my feelings were changing. One evening, I sat alone and thought about our journey. I remembered the first day we met, his smiles, his kindness, and the way he believed in me when no one else did. I remembered how he walked in rain to bring me money for the books, how he stayed up late to encourage me during exams, how he went without food so I could eat. Tears filled my heart, my eyes. I knew I could never repay him for what he had done. The guilt started to eat me from inside. I started not to sleep well Whenever I saw his missed calls, my heart fell heavy. I imagined his face the day I would tell him I want to leave. Would he hate me? Would you regret ever helping me? I told one of my close friends about my situation. She said, Maria, love is not enough. You need a man who can match your future. John is a good man, but you resent him later if you marry him. Another friend said, you can still be grateful without being together. Sometimes letting go is better than pretending. Their words made me think even more. In the end, I made a painful decision. I would tell John the truth that I could not continue the relationship. I met him at a quiet cafe. He smiled when he saw me, but my heart was breaking. I told him everything, trying to explain that it was not about his character, but about different worlds. He sat in silence for a long time. Then he said softly, Maria, I gave you my best years. I have nothing left to give, but I hope life treats you well. He stood up and walked away. I never saw him again. It has been 2 years since that day. I graduated, I got a good job, and I even travel for work now. But deep inside, I carry around. I often think of John, wondering where he is, if he is happy, if he forgave me. Sometimes I wish I could find him and say I'm sorry. You were the best thing that happened to me. I just didn't know how to hold on. I realize now that wealthy is not the same as life, and some sacrifices are too pure to ever forget. This is my confession. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, my sister. Let us move to the third confession. It's a long video, ladies and gentlemen. We have not been publishing in the past days, so we are trying to catch up. Let me read for you. Listeners, I greet you in the name of truth. I want to share my life story because my heart is heavy. I've been part of a group that serves darkness for many years. This group looks normal from the outside, but inside it is full of evil. I joined them when I was a young man because I was desperate for money. They promised me quick wealthy, good clothes, and an easy life. But what I didn't not know was that I was giving away my freedom. They used me to harm people without them knowing. My job was to smoke cigarettes in public places and at events. I thought it was just a way to relax or look stylish. I didn't know at first that each puff of smoke I blew could steal a person's soul. The leader of our group tells us the truth about 3 months. He said, this is not normal smoke. We mix it with special spiritual powder from the shrine. When you blow the smoke, it carries invisible chains. These invisible chains wrap around the spirit of anyone nearby. Some chains only hold a person for a short time, but some chains pull the person completely into the group's control. He explained that the smoke can enter the body through the nose or mouth when someone breathes it in. Even if they don't notice, their spirit is touched by darkness. We target bus stops, nightclubs, and even schools. Anywhere there were people, especially young people, because they are easy to influence. My first real job was in a busy nightclub in the city. I was told to smoke slowly, move around the place, and make sure my smoke reached as many people as possible. The powder had no smell. People just thought it was a normal cigarette. I noticed that after a while, some people began to look weak and sleepy. Others started acting strange, becoming more aggressive and too friendly with strangers. When I reported back, the leader smiled and said, good job. You brought in 7 new souls tonight. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about those 7 people. They had no idea their lives had just changed forever. The group had a reward system. For every person soul you captured, you got money, gifts, or special protection from spiritual attacks. The more souls you collected, the more powerful you became in the group. Some members were experts at it. They could target a person from far away just by blowing smoke in their direction. I started earning more money than I ever imagined. I bought more expensive clothes, shoes, cars, and even moved into a better house. But deep down inside, I was not at the peace most people think I am. Our leaders taught us that some people were easier to capture than others. We targeted drunk people, people who were stressed, and those with a broken heart. We also targeted people who had no strong spiritual protection. If we saw someone praying before smoking reached out, we stayed away. We were told never to go near people who carry certain Bible verses in their heart or who had a strong spiritual covering. The smoke would not chain them. That was the first time I realized that there was something stronger that our evil group was hiding behind its back. One evening, I went to smoke at a tax rank. A young mother was holding a baby waiting for transport. I blew smoke near her without thinking. The baby began crying loudly, and the woman looked at me with fear in her eyes. I felt something inside me break. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the baby's face. I began to ask myself questions. What if someone did this to my own family? How many lives have I destroyed already? From that day, my heart started pulling away from the group. But living is not easy. Once you are inside, they don't let you go without a fight. Listeners, this is the last thing I want to say. If you have been hearing my voice from the first time, I have stolen people's souls using cigarette smoke. I have worked for an evil group that hides in plain sight. I am no longer part of them, but I am still fighting for my freedom. They have already tried to attack me in my dreams or through strange sickness, but I believe one day I will be completely free. I want you to understand something. Evil can use the smallest things to destroy a life. For me, it was smoke. For others, it can be music, money, or even handshake. You don't always see it coming. That is why you must live with your eyes open and the spirit awake. Please, if you smoke or allow people to blow smoke near you, think twice. If you have been feeling strange, weak, or having nightmares after being near someone smoking, pray for yourself or your family. Don't ignore small signs. Many people think it is only stress or bad luck, but sometimes it is a spiritual attack. I know some members of my former group are listening right now. You may be angry that I'm exposing you, but I don't care anymore. My time is in God's hands. I would rather die telling the truth than live in chains serving the devil. To everyone hearing me, please protect your soul. Once it is stolen, you may never get it back. But if you still have it, guard it like gold. Stay away from evil, even if it comes to you looking harmless. This is my confession. I have spoken. May God forgive me and may He protect me as well. Thank you so much, my brother, for sharing your story with us. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move to our fourth and final confession. Greetings, listeners. This is not easy for me to say. My voice is shaking and my heart is heavy, but I want to confess before the truth eats me alive. I'm a young woman aged 24 years old. I have done something so wrong that I don't know how to face the person I have hurt the most. I grew up in the streets after my parents died when I was just 13. I slept in bus stations begging for food and sometimes cleaned shop windows for coins. People passed me like I was invisible. Nobody cared if I ate or not. Then one day, a woman stopped in front of me. She was well dressed, kind, and her eyes were full of pity. That woman became my boss. She took me to her home, gave me food, clothes, and a soft bed to sleep in. Living with her felt like a dream. She treated me like a younger sister, not like a servant. The husband was also kind. He never shouted at me, always respected me, and sometimes gave me extra money for personal things. For the first time, I felt safe. I felt like I had a family again. I promised myself I would never betray them. But one evening, everything changed. My boss had traveled for a work conference, leaving me and her husband at home. That night, there was a heavy rainstorm, and the power went out. We sat in the living room talking. One thing led to another, and we crossed a line that should never have been crossed. I told myself it was just a mistake, that it would never happen again. But it didn't stop there. Whenever my boss traveled, her husband found excuses to be near me. I was too weak to say no. Part of me was afraid he would throw me out if I refused. Months passed and I began to notice changes in my body. I went to a clinic in secret and the nurse confirmed I was pregnant. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and cried until my eyes swelled. I thought about the woman who took me from the streets, who gave me everything I have. She trusted me with her home, her children, and her life, and there was carrying her husband's child. The guilty is crushing me. When I told him about the pregnancy, he panicked. He said, "You must never tell my wife. If she finds out, your life will be destroyed and I will lose everything." He gave me money to go for an abortion, but I could not do it. I have already done enough wrong. Taking the life of an innocent child felt like adding more to darkness to my soul. My boss started noticing my strange behavior. I avoided her eyes, working quietly, and kept my distance. She kept asking, "Are you okay?" But I always say, "Yes, ma'am." As months are passing, my belly is starting to show up. I don't know how to explain this to my boss. Please help me. This moment in my mind 1,000 times. I imagine sitting here down and saying, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I've betrayed you." I know she'll cry. I know she'll never forgive me. But I also know that hiding this forever will destroy me forever. Solution Uncle, help me with advices. What should I do in this situation? Please help me. I don't know what to do. Thank you so much, my sister, for sharing your story with us. Listeners, we have just heard a very emotional and painful confession. This is not just a story about a maid and her boss's husband. This story about trust, temptation, betrayal, and the power of guilt. From a Christian point of view, we can see that sin often starts small. Maybe one moment of weakness, one wrong choice, one secret we think nobody will know. But the Bible says in Numbers chapter 32, verse 23, "Be sure your sin will find out." When we hide sin, it grows heavier on our hearts until it breaks us. We also see here how kindness can be destroyed by betrayal. The boss took this young woman from the streets and gave her a life, but instead of guarding that trust, she broke it. In God's eyes, both the husband and the maid share the blame. The word says in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. This story is a warning. Temptation is real, and it is often coming when we feel safe and comfortable. The devil does not always attack through enemies. Sometimes uses people closest to us. And of lessons we have learned from this story, the 10 lessons we've learned from this story. Kindness should never be repaid with betrayal. If someone helps you, protect their trust. Temptation often comes in moments of weakness. Be alert and pray all the time. Sin is easier to commit than to confess, but confession brings freedom, even if it costs you. Secrets can destroy your peace. Hiding the truth will make you restless and heavy-hearted. A betrayal wounds the soul deeply. It can take you from being hurt by someone you trusted. Both parties share the blame in wrongdoing. One person's kindness is not an excuse for another's weakness. Choices have consequences. A single night can change your life forever. Honesty is better than living a lie. Even if it hurts, the truth sets you free. God sees what is done in secret, no matter how hidden every action is before his eyes. Forgiveness is possible, but repentance is necessary. Without turning away from sin, the same mistake will happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Until we meet again on the episodes. Bye for now.